Story 1. I consider myself a fairly high-functioning person with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, yet I feel a mountain of resistance to answering messages, even if the only response needed is, okay. Story 2. The obvious answer is daily tasks such as laundry, dishes, cooking, and hygiene. However, I would argue that while those feel almost impossible for me to do most days, my actual answer would be the things I love doing. The most difficult part of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder for me is the constant shame and guilt I feel for my inability to just do the things I need to do. Even when I am not doing those daily living tasks, I am thinking about the fact that I am not doing them. I feel guilty and ashamed, and I feel anxious about not doing them. All that guilt, shame, and anxiety means that, even though I am not doing those things, I cannot enjoy doing anything I love either. All my hobbies, I cannot get pleasure from them because the entire time I just feel upset and anxious. Those projects I am excited about and want to start, I feel I should not start those until I finish the things I need to do. Those movies I really want to watch, I do not put them on at all because I feel that I should be spending that time doing the things I need to do instead. So I do nothing at all. Not my hobbies that I love, not the things I need to do, nothing. Some weird gray limbo of doing nothing but feeling badly about everything anyway. Story 3. Overcoming task paralysis. Sometimes you hit a mental wall that is so high, there is nothing you can do about it. Your brain has said it has had enough. If it gets really bad, it can spiral into a full-blown psychiatric crisis. Story 4. I do not know about everyone else, but for me, hands down, the hardest part is just getting myself to start a task. It could be something I love or some boring chore. 0 to 100 is a real struggle. It feels like I have to move a mountain just to begin. Once I am in, I am all in. But that initial push, man, it is very difficult every time. Ironically, people think it is just about focus, but there is way more to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder than that. Story 5. Is there anything I should be doing? I am an expert on many topics except the ones I should be engaging with. Story 6. Complete a large task. If it takes longer than a couple of hours to finish, I consider it a large task. I am great at starting them, but very few do I see through to completion. Story 7. I know what the situation is, but I am petrified. The situation changes, but I become frozen instead of actually taking action. Story 8. I have been living with this condition long enough to be able to do most things that I see others struggle with. Starting and completing tasks is no problem. I enjoy my hobbies absolutely. Taking showers is no issue. My biggest challenge is maintaining habits that keep me healthy, such as exercise, diet, and spending time outdoors. I experience periods where my diet becomes my hyperfocus, and the same happens with exercising. Story 9. Doing something someone else wants me to do. The moment someone tells me, you need to do X, my brain immediately puts that task at the bottom of the list of things I need or want to do. Even if I plan to do it before being told, I prefer to avoid it now. This was a major issue at nearly every workplace I have had, except my current one. I explained to my boss how my brain works, and he said, as long as the tasks are done when they need to be, I don't care. I may procrastinate on many things, which drives some people around me absolutely insane. But I never miss a deadline. In the end, it is my problem if I have to pull an all-nighter to meet a deadline because I physically could not start the task earlier. It also depends on how you ask me to do something. The words have to, must, and need are the biggest offenders. I have to breathe. I must pay taxes. And I need coffee. Nothing more, nothing less. Story 10. Little things like paying bills even though I have the money, and big things like following through on life goals. Story 11. Usually focusing on the task at hand, unless you mean physically, then I really do not know. My girlfriend is really good at staying focused. Right now she is making dinner and doing homework, but those enchiladas smell great. We are having green chili this time, which is nice for a change. Red chili reminds me of the color of blood, and when I had to go to the emergency room for a cut on my forehead that just would not stop bleeding. It was so annoying, but it was my own fault for walking right into that cabinet. Seriously, why do cabinets have to have such sharp corners? Story 12. A lot of people's minds seem like a sniper. They can focus on one thing, wait for the right moment, and execute what needs to be done. Mine is a Gatling gun on a pogo stick that sprays everywhere until it runs out of ammo, then sputters until it overheats. Some of the intended targets may have been hit, but mainly it is just a mess. Story 13. Not finishing someone's sentence when I know what they are going to say, but they are so slow in saying it. Story 14. Having a normal conversation without getting too excited or distracted, then feeling awkward because the flow feels disrupted. Daily tasks. If I can do one thing, I should be able to do them all. I'll get to that later. Actively listening, retaining, and processing information. Not having 10 things at the start of my to-do list, then not starting. Feeling tired from thinking too much or trying to keep up. Going a long time without getting anything done. Feeling guilty for being unproductive, then bursting into action and completing everything in one day, only to repeat the cycle for another 2 weeks. Story 15. Learn a job quickly. I lose focus so fast that I end up showing the same thing multiple times, so people think I am slow and that I cannot do a simple task. Story 16. Torn between not making impulsive decisions and working up the mental energy to start or finish a task. Also need to respond to texts and answer questions with just one answer. Story 17. Keep track of time. I have to run multiple alarms throughout the day to make sure I do not time travel from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Also, start literally anything. I cannot just do one thing like a normal person. One thing turns into two, which turns into four, and so on. It is exhausting just thinking about it, so it is better to not do anything and stick to my schedule. Story 18. I opened this thread to comment, but by the time I actually got here, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Story 19. When it comes to my work, I prioritize my workload. I have many tasks to do. I have made a list, but I feel paralyzed. Story 20. Oh man, if I take my medication with food in the morning, my medication does not work as well. I have binge eating disorder due to my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. If I forget to take my medication and eat first, I am likely to have a binge day. It is so frustrating because I know I have to take my medication first thing, but then the dog needs to go outside or the cat is getting into something, or I remember I forgot to do the dishes last night, so I have to do those. My brain is racing the moment I get up, and I cannot think a single thought without 20 more playing at the same time. And songs. So many songs overlapping the random thoughts. The first day I took lisdexamfetamine and felt peace in my head was so magical. Being able to type something out without forgetting what I was trying to say or getting distracted is amazing. Before my medication, I barely showered, brushed my teeth, or got out of bed. I barely lived because everything felt overwhelming, like it was painful to even try. I would try to get into a routine, but I could never stick with it. Now I am showered, teeth brushed, out of bed, walking the dog at 6 a.m., and exercising regularly. My entire life has changed. Story 21. I have short-term memory issues. Why do I remember exactly what my teacher said while she taught me that day, but not where I put my keys? Story 22. For me, it is waiting for a phone call or when I have an appointment at a particular time, as I cannot do anything until afterward. I literally just sit there and do nothing because I cannot do anything. I once sat and did nothing from 8:30 a.m. until 3 p.m., as I had to leave the house at 3 p.m. to get to an appointment. Story 23. For me, high-level cognitive tasks, milestones, and events such as doctor appointments are easy. Work is included. However, any daily monotonous chore easily slips my mind. For example, laundry is the bane of my existence. Story 24. I have a mountain of laundry all the time. It is clean but never put away. I do not have a pile of dishes because I have learned to invite people to my house, so I panic clean the main part of my house right before they arrive, at least once a week. Also, I almost always delay starting any task I have to do, even if I want to do it. Yesterday, I had to bake a cake, and baking is one of my favorite hobbies, but it took me an hour to get started. I only really began because it was getting too hot to turn on the oven. Story 25. Starting on something that does not interest me, like right now, I need to write a document. It will probably take me less than 30 minutes, but there are many other things that I find more interesting, like cleaning my nails, that I just do not want to do, and the desire not to do it wins most of the time. Story 26. Talk and work at the same time. I don't care how simple the job is. If we get into a semi-interesting conversation, my performance will drop by about 80%, or I will just stop and talk entirely. I also cannot focus on multiple tasks at once because I break each individual task down, analyze which one needs to be done first in my head, and go from there. Story 27. Start a project of any kind. Where do I start? What tools do I need? If I need tools, where do I get them? If it is something new, how do I learn to do it, and what step is that? I start in 5 different places but do not finish any of them because while I am in the middle of one, I notice something else that needs to be done. I start doing that, then forget what I was doing initially. I start something else only to remember what I was doing initially and then go back to doing that partially. After about an hour of that, my brain is exhausted and I take a nap. Story 28. Managing rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Yes, I can't focus, I fidget and self-stimulate, I overwhelm people with information, but rejection-sensitive dysphoria is the part that seems to create the most difficulty. This then leads to mental health challenges, overcompensation, and significant masking issues, which is exhausting. Story 29. Start and finish a task that needs to be done. Ask about the clothes in the basket in my closet or the items in my trunk that should not be there. Also, do not press snooze. Feels so good, but I regret it every time I do it, especially 7 times in a row. The number of times I have screamed at Alexa is frustrating. Story 30. Daily tasks such as showering, getting dressed, routine housework, schoolwork, and basic executive function. Story 31. Struggling to stay involved with people around me when my mind is racing with things to do, ideas, or concerns. This has caused some issues in my relationships as I retreat into my head and forget other important matters. Story 32. Emotional dysregulation. I cry very easily, and it is annoying. I wish I could at least hold it in until I am in a private place. Story 33. I describe my brain like a 6 CD changer. Most of the time I am lucky, and it loops the same familiar tracks, interests, thoughts, obsessions that I can handle or even enjoy. But every now and then, it loads a destructive one, and I do not get to choose when. Suddenly, I am spiraling, obsessed with something negative or pointless, and it completely derails any progress I was making. A shadow of my yesterday's self. The lack of control is what hurts the most, and the fact that consistency is pretty key to life, whether that is job or family. It is, for me, the hardest part. I know what I am capable of when the right CD is in. I just do not know how long I get to keep that version of me. Story 34. At home, repetitive and recurring chores like showering and washing dishes need to be done all the time. I feel like Sisyphus. At work, I recently discovered the difficulty of not having enough tasks to keep me occupied for half of my shift, yet not having enough freedom to use my phone. I end up standing there with nothing to do and unable to entertain myself. My supervisor reprimands me for trying to amuse myself, but I complete the assigned work within an hour or 2 of my shift. The rest of the shift is spent on standby in case someone needs assistance. I wish I could use my phone during emergencies. Story 35. Process things fast. I am very slow at processing everything, so I ask simple questions sometimes. Everyone often takes advantage by calling me unintelligent, even though I can easily map out 5 different outcomes to conversations I have already had in my head. Story 36. Do I have to pick one thing? I feel like moving the laundry off the drying rack is one of them. Usually, I have to start a new wash cycle, so then I have to force myself to put the clean clothes away so I can hang the wet ones to dry. Also, remembering to take out the trash and studying for exams I do not particularly enjoy. There are a million things. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is challenging. Story 37. Sticking to a habit is challenging. I miss one day, and it all falls apart because I forget about it for the next month. Story 38. Laundry is particularly hard, mainly because unlike other tasks you cannot get over the hurdle and just get it done. You need to do one annoying thing, wait a long time, motivate yourself to do another annoying thing, and repeat the process. It is even more difficult if there are multiple loads. It is just so hard to get yourself moving, stop, and then restart. Story 39. Overly optimistic mentality and how it affects consistent outcomes with life goals, plans, and my absolute favorite, lost jobs. I burn myself out between work and agreeing to anything work-related, traveling by bike in over 70 degrees and 70% humidity everywhere. That mostly occupies my daily time frame and business hours for grocery shopping. Optimism again leans me toward thinking I feel fine right now. I'll be fine if I skip this meal. I'm aware of it, but it is not effective without my medication. Another challenge is keeping appointments. Story 40. Do not be impulsive or say the first thing that comes to mind. Also, organization is important, but that is mainly in my job. Keeping track of emails is very challenging for me. Story 41. All my years studying, I have had a really hard time staying focused on the lectures without my brain daydreaming or suddenly thinking of something else. I always knew I had that issue. I tried so hard not to think of something else and stay focused, but it never worked. I never knew this was like an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder thing. I always thought everyone was like this, honestly. Story 42. Any documentation. I can write 1,000 lines of code. But if you need me to document any of it, I will make it very difficult. Also, any life support documents too. Procuring simple parent signatures or names on paper makes me want to cry. Story 43. For me, it is relaxing and helps with remembering appointments. Sometimes I set reminders days ahead of the appointment, but I still somehow forget on the day of and end up not waking up in time or doing something else that means I cannot make it to the appointment. Story 44. Damn, it's hard to decide on one thing, but probably keeping my mouth shut in certain situations, especially when I disagree with people in positions of authority. Story 45. I have trouble keeping my focus on anything for more than 5 to 10 minutes. My attention span is very short and is definitely my biggest struggle with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Story 46. Focusing on anything is important. I work in a factory, so focus is key. When you have paperwork to do, and then someone asks you to sort out a machine, suddenly you are loading product onto a conveyor. The next thing you know, you are talking to a stranger you have never met before. It is hard, and even harder because I am unmedicated. My probation ends next month, and I have to do an assessment. If I fail that, I will lose my job. I keep getting told to focus. Story 47. Progressing in life. I am always behind on everything. Also, dealing with overstimulation. Staying alive is hard. Loving myself is hard too, but I have 2 cats to take care of. So, I am going to stay on Earth for them. Story 48. Plan a trip. I hate booking tickets and having to plan everything, and I rarely follow through unless someone else plans it for me. Story 49. Listening for someone to repeat a story because I said I missed the last part, or any repetition of a story. Story 50. Even with my medication, atomoxetine, I still experience executive dysfunction, decision paralysis, and distractions. To be fair, I have severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and spent the first 36 years of my life without medication. I turned 37 this year. The medication helps, but because I am sensitive to higher doses, I can only take so much and get limited benefit from it. They do help, but not enough to fully restore my life from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I hope that makes sense. I also tend to lose track of time in a significant way. I had to reschedule a doctor's appointment, and it has probably been 6 months now. I really need to address that soon. Story 51. Building habits. I have to have reminders for all kinds of tasks like brushing my teeth twice a day, drinking at least a glass of water or something with my meals, and so on. These are small things as well as big things. Since I am overweight and trying to get into a healthier routine by going on walks, eating regularly, and drinking more, it is very frustrating. I basically need my phone to constantly sound an alarm for me to do these things. Story 52. Staying focused on an assignment without browsing the internet instead of doing my work. Story 53. It is a battle between starting tasks and regulating my emotions. It can take forever to pick up an object because I need to wait until I find the perfect spot for it, or I become overwhelmed by having too many things to do and end up not doing any of them. If one little thing goes wrong, I feel like my whole life is ruined. If I feel rejected, I start thinking about every instance where I felt that way, believing everyone hates me and that I should run to the mountains. Story 54. Not the hardest but very new. I have been camping 3 times in the last 2 years. After the tent is set up, everything has a place. Clean clothes in one corner, small items in another. But then the tent becomes a mess. After one night, everything is everywhere with no system. I try to reorganize but feel very stressed and stop after 2 pieces, then leave. Every time it is time to pack, I feel very overwhelmed and almost want to run away. I talk to myself in my mind to calm down. Does anyone else experience this? Story 55. Anything I do not want to do. I am mostly joking, but also not. Especially if it is complicated or difficult in some way. It feels like a physical resistance. The more overwhelmed or overstimulated I get, the worse it becomes. I can try going outside, physical movement, and brown noise, which sometimes helps. Also, sometimes sending someone a photo of what I am working on and then sending them updates helps. Recently, I have found that practicing my instrument is also very helpful. It feels like a job, so it breaks the executive dysfunction, but it is a job I love, so I can usually at least start, and sometimes I can do the task after. As I get older, I realize the signs that something is not going to happen, and I give up early now. It is not ideal, but I essentially have 2 choices. Sit there in agony and not get the task done, or do something else and not get the task done. Either way, it is not getting done. Story 56. Having to keep count of something if it is more than 2 or 3. If I am in the tractor at work and have to load anything more than 2 or 3 tons of stone or something, I have to keep count on my phone. It is trivial, but I cannot stay focused to keep count in my head. Story 57. Not spending money is the easiest way for me to get dopamine, and it does not really matter what I spend it on. Even groceries give me dopamine, but that does not mean it is enough. I want to buy something every single day, and as a student, you can imagine how that is literally not possible. Vint has helped a lot because I can sell stuff I do not use and use the Vint balance to get new items, but it is still a huge problem. Everything I have tried to reduce spending has failed. It is worse when I have nothing to do, and being summer and in between education and jobs makes it just the worst. Any tips are welcome. Condescending tones are not. Story 58. If you are under 40 years old and have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, try to introduce a stretching regimen into your day so your body starts telling you to stretch, because we all know our minds are preoccupied. When I am hyper-focused on one project, I forget that my 45-year-old body starts hurting because I have been in the exact same sitting position with bad posture for hours. So when I stand up, walk around a bit, and stretch, my body is in shock and some limbs take a while longer to wake up. It is as if the tingling sensation of body parts falling asleep is always secondary to the task at hand. Living with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, I have learned about myself and absolutely love when my mind is hyper-focused on one thing. I am able to feel like myself since I am not distracted by any other activity, and to me, that is a superpower. Story 59. Complete a task. I have many projects started yet not completed. I replaced one of the faucets in my bathroom, and the other one sat in the box for 15 months with the tools on the counter. Took me 15 minutes to replace the second one. Also, binge eating. Story 60. Trying to appear normal. A lot of my social awkwardness comes out, and I tend to be randomly weird. My coworker probably has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder like I do, so we go along for the ride. However, my other coworkers just react with confused or indifferent expressions depending on what I am talking about. Medication helps somewhat, but it still shows. Story 61. Simply put, stopping. Stopping myself from a late-night snack binge once I am in it. Stopping myself from watching mindless content even when the internal commentary is urging me to switch to something else. Stopping myself from interrupting someone while they are speaking. Stopping myself from scrolling. The list goes on. Story 62. Paperwork, particularly administrative tasks, even if doing them will benefit me. Also, starting tasks. Story 63. Remembering anything in a conversation is difficult. It seems like half of what I hear goes in one ear and out the other. This causes significant phone anxiety. Story 64. I find it very hard to focus on one thing at a time. Sometimes multitasking is simply the inability to finish one task before starting another. I am the kind of person who can play the television, play music, read a book, and have a conversation while tapping on something or shaking my foot with energetic excitement. Story 65. Not craving drugs. I am clean now, but I put my brain through some rough times before I figured out what was going on. Story 66. Estimate time without a clock or consciously counting it. If 5 minutes have passed, I cannot tell if it is 5 or 10 minutes, or if it is 10, I cannot tell if it is 10 or 20. If you get what I mean. Story 67. I've always likened it to an invisible hand pushing down on my shoulder, preventing me from even getting up to do the thing I am thinking about doing. My short-term memory is poor, but I can tell you what I got for Christmas when I was 3. I guess the hardest thing is getting the fundamentals done properly first because I always feel I am on a shaky foundation with whatever I do. I know I have cut corners, so when is the collapse coming? Story 68. Unmedicated attention deficit hyperactivity disorder here. Nothing is harder than cleaning and stopping doing the dishes to start 3 other tasks. Oh no, the pot handle is off this pot. Look for the screwdriver. This toolbox is pretty unorganized. Move a few things, drop some items on the floor. There is stuff all over the floor here. Guess I'll sweep. It has been 2 hours and I didn't even finish the dishes. Story 69. Keeping myself clean all the time takes a lot of focus and energy. It has been like that my whole life. Story 70. Steer. It's not about any specific tasks but just directing my attention throughout the day. I wake up and forget what I needed to do that day, or I have a list but forget to look at it, or I look at it and get distracted by something else. It feels like I'm chasing a train and don't know how to get in front of it. So frustrating because all the tips rely on being able to pause for a second to redirect, and I feel like I can't even do that most of the time. I'm just being dragged along. Story 71. Consistency is important. I can start anything and do it maybe 3 times. After that, it becomes exhausting and a chore, and I feel resentful. Story 72. I never knew I had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and always just thought I was different and unique. Later on, I learned that I was just different. All my personality traits and virtually every feeling I have had can be attributed to this disorder. I identify with the disorder. At first, I couldn't wrap my head around it, and it was a bittersweet feeling when I first read the symptoms for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It felt like a ton of bricks hit me, followed by a brief wave of relief. It was as if I had found a memoir and the book contained my stories. It was a surreal experience seeing the words on the page, but I also felt violated and exposed. I felt like my story was original, but it has been lived out countless times and already written. Also, it is 6:58 a.m., and I have not gone to sleep yet. That's what I get for taking my medication at 7:30 p.m. Took me about 45 minutes to write this. Story 73. Begin adding simple and likely short tasks that I do not want to do. Tasks will remain on the to-do list indefinitely until I am forced to deal with them. Meanwhile, I have accomplished 20 other, more complex tasks as well as 100 unrelated and unimportant side tasks that interested me more. Story 74. Doing simple tasks like delivering food. I will be able to wait patiently after earning $6 in the heat. If there is something very stupid, it is extremely hard for me to do it without losing focus. Story 75. Cold approaching strangers unexpectedly, especially if it is a woman I am interested in, is not an issue for me if they make the first move. However, making the first move myself is anywhere from modestly nerve-wracking to paralyzing. Not medicated, looking to change that. Story 76. Paperwork is challenging for me. I also struggle to make appointments and return calls. I can motivate myself to do physical work by turning on an audiobook and getting to work. However, when I need to use my brain for paperwork, the audiobook distracts me. I am a middle-aged woman with a late-in-life diagnosis. I have been very high functioning for most of my life, but there was pain surrounding it. I spend most of my time micromanaging myself. Story 77. I have a hard time paying attention when people are talking. My son says you can see me zone out in the middle of a conversation. I don't know I am doing it, and I have no control over it. It is really frustrating, and I know it used to upset my kids because they thought I was doing it on purpose. I always apologize, but it happens a lot. Story 78. Generally, anything that is not mentally stimulating. Try to get many reminders for these tasks. It helps to have a partner who enjoys housework and follows up with me if I am not doing my tasks. I use many visual reminders as well, such as a whiteboard at home, sticky notes, and setting more calendar reminders at work. Story 79. Also intersecting with autism, job interviews are challenging for me. I am horrible at them and have more than I would like to admit forgotten what I was talking about, lost my train of thought while listening, and even tended to ramble when I forgot the question asked. I also cannot pick up on social cues when the interviewer is being sarcastic or passive-aggressive and can take them quite literally, all to my detriment. Story 80. I can complete a large task with no issues, but folding laundry? No, I cannot do it. Putting dishes in the dishwasher correctly? Absolutely not. It is the little things I cannot do. Story 81. Do not interrupt people. Sit in silence. Remember to brush my teeth. Remember to drink water. Finish a task I started. Medications help a lot, but I just wish I could form a habit like a normal person. Story 82. The hardest thing is focusing when I read a book, even one I am very interested in. I will read the same paragraph 3 times and still be like, wait, what? I have done everything else to help me focus. Chores are done, I am comfortable, my headphones have an orchestra playlist just for reading, and I am still not able to focus. It is irritating, to say the least. But once I am focused, I will not come up for air for hours. Story 83. Live feeling bored and understimulated to the point of frustration and annoyance, while being overstimulated by watching a movie, using my phone, cooking dinner, and having a conversation all at the same time. Story 84. Stringing positive things together, I find I constantly stop my own momentum and have struggled heavily with consistency. Story 85. Refinement, consistency, competition, organizing, staying positive, embracing change, remaining focused, planning, and more. Pick one. Anyone. At several points throughout the day, that is the hardest thing for me to do. Story 86. I like to imagine my brain as a metaphorical sports team. Let's call it basketball. Before the game, the coach says, "All right, everyone, we are going to go out there and play basketball." Everyone agrees. This is the time to play basketball. Let's do this. We go out. We start playing basketball, but then switch to baseball, then end up reading a book. Right before halftime, I make a half-hearted attempt to play basketball. Halftime comes, and the coach says, "Guys, seriously, what is going on?" "Right, coach, that was totally messed up. We're going to get it together in the second half." Second half, same thing. The only thing that helps is lots of stimulants. Then I can play basketball long enough so the team doesn't get disbanded. It's frustrating because I can attempt tasks, be aware that I have this problem, and yet repeat the same mistakes. I can agree afterward that I messed up, but without stimulants, I'll do it over and over again. They tell you to disclose it at your job, but if you do, nothing happens. The HR representative was upset because she said this is for real disabilities. Story 87. The shame of not being able to start my work tasks and the way my impulsivity impacted relationships in my 20s. I was unaware of how to manage my impulsivity and lost many friends I had. With medication, age, and cognitive behavioral therapy skills, I am doing better with impulsivity and getting started on work tasks. Story 88. For me, my primary executive dysfunction is working memory. I am horrible at mental math, verbal directions to a location, and remembering someone's name when I first meet them, whether in person or on the phone. If I cannot see it, then the information likely will not stick. Also, out of sight, out of mind. Post-its and lists are a must. Coming in a close second is that I lose interest in anything rather quickly, even things I enjoy. My time management, planning, and organizational skills are very good. Story 89. Study to get a better job in order to have a better life. I am having a really hard time fighting comparison. Story 90. If I clean up by putting something in a room, drawer, or closet and closing the door, it is literally impossible to remember that I need to organize that space once the door is shut. I have been redoing my office for over a year now. Since we keep the door closed to avoid seeing the mess inside, it is impossible to remember that I have to finish until I walk in and say, "Damn it!" Story 91. Man, everything seems so hard to get started, to stick with, to switch, to learn. I ended up with a good job, but it demands a lot. Feels like every day is miserable and exhausting. Story 92. Remember things. There is so much going on in my head at all times that when I am having a conversation, most of the information I hear goes in one ear and out the other. I have to try really hard to catch myself when I start thinking about random off-topic thoughts. At that point, all I am thinking about is not thinking about things that I do not need to, so the same thing happens. I have started writing notes as soon as an important piece of information is given to me, which helps. Story 93. Stick to one hobby. I have spent so much money on hobbies I barely do anymore. Then months later, I do it again for a few days, then move to another hobby or pick up a new one. Story 94. I am very functional in my job, maybe because I have to be. I am very dysfunctional at home. I moved in January and still have a lot of unpacking to do. I downsized from a 3-bedroom house with a basement to a 2-bedroom apartment. I got rid of so much stuff, but I still have a lot to get rid of. Story 95. Anything bureaucratic. Renewing driver's license, filing taxes, dealing with insurance. I have mostly gotten my life together, but stuff like that just sends me into a meltdown. I am so thankful for my wife, who is a paralegal, because she borderline enjoys that stuff, so she takes care of a lot of it with me now. Meanwhile, she gets stressed about something like replacing a toilet seat or shower head or preparing the property for the changing seasons every year, and that stuff just excites me. Story 96. Paying bills and returning phone calls, even when I want to do so. The complete inability to do these tasks cannot be understood unless experienced. Story 97. Remembering things like not knowing where I have put keys or my wallet, or whether I should do something or have already done it. Story 98. Sometimes when I am picking things up and moving them around, I will pace for 5 minutes because I have no idea what to collect next. Story 99. Live for myself and my future. I am currently just surviving this moment. I am not able to think about my future needs. I am not in dental pain right now, but I will be in 5 or 10 years, or even less if I continue my caffeine addiction. It is not looking good. I am unable to think I will even survive in the future, let alone be somewhat healthy. My biggest struggle with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder right now is probably being unmedicated, addicted, and unmotivated. I am not lazy. I have a 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. job and am living in a garage because of the rental crisis. I am not smart enough yet to have that miracle moment to change my life. I am slowly harming myself with takeaway food because of convenience. Love you all. Stay safe. Story 100. As a former school teacher, I have to say that the whole attention deficit hyperactivity disorder thing is fake. Whenever I gave children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder something they liked, such as computer games or football, it was amazing how good their concentration became. They could concentrate for hours with no problem whatsoever, unlike when it was math or English. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder allows us an excuse to drug unruly and non-cooperating children and solve their behavioral issues, but it is not true. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.